Hello, welcome back to Reads of an Apple. My name is Stacy and I'm here to talk about the books that I read in February. Now, February was a very slow month for me, which is surprising because typically it's Pharaoh Feb, Fantasy Romance February, and I usually read so much in February. It's usually one of my highest number of books read in the year. But not this year. A lot of different life things were kind of going on, and what I did pick up tended to be a lot longer books, which was crazy. But let's just get into the stats and then we'll go from there. So I read a total of 13 books for 4,578 pages, which is less books than January, but only like 150, 200 pages less. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I averaged 2.31 days per book. It definitely took me a lot longer to get through a book this month. And then the average page count is somehow only 352.15. Now, as for what I read break pages wise, I read 2 books under 100 pages, 2 books in the 100s, 1 book in the 200s, 3 books in the 300s, 1 book in the 400s, 3 books in the 500s, and 1 book in the 700s. But the 700 one was like 798 or something super crazy, so it was pretty much an 800 page book. I ended up reading only 4 new to me authors, and I didn't have any rereads. As for book clubs, readathons, and read-alongs, 8 of the books I specifically picked up for those. So that's most of my reading for the month. 4 of them had diversity of some kind, and none of them were standalones. All the books I read were a part of a series. 5 of the books were recommended to me, and then 2 of them I previously owned, 2 of them I pre-ordered, or I had, I either ordered shortly after or I had on pre-order before I read it, so I didn't read it physically. And then I added 3 books to my wish list. And then as for how I read the books, 1 book I read physically, 6 books I read via e-format, 5 books were audio, and then I had 1 combo book. Okay, let's just keep moving on through stats here. So I read 8 independently published books and 5 traditionally published books. The decades I read in were 1 in the 2000s, 4 in the 2010s, and 8 in the 2020s. And then ages of the characters, I read 3 books that were YA, 1 book that I considered new adult, 3 in their 20s, 1 in their 30s, 1 in their 40s, and 4 books with supernatural characters, so their aging is different. And then the final little grouping of stats I have is where the books were located when I read them. So I read 2 books that I physically owned. I had 1 e-arc. I read 3 books from Kindle Unlimited, 5 books from Hoopla, which I hit my Hoopla goal for the month again, which is great, and 3 of them I checked out from Libby. Then as for ratings, I had 5 5-stars, 1 4.5 stars, 1 4-star, and 6 3.5 stars. And then I usually tell you what my average rating is, but on mine, it doesn't show the average rating. On this one, it does, which is weird. So let me just pull it up really quick and we'll get that stat, because I know that ratings are at the top of my spreadsheet. So, oh, interesting. My average rating was 4.25, which is crazy for how many 3.5 books I had in the month. Editing Stacy here. So, when I was doing my stats, for some reason, I completely skipped over one of my stat pages. So, we're going to do it real quick. and that is genres. So I read 3 contemporary romances, 5 fantasy romances, 2 historical, 2 paranormal, and 1 sci-fi. So I hit my goal of reading at least 1 in every genre for the month. And then as for the contemporaries, 2 of them were holidays and 1 of them was a small town. So there's that. I'll let you get back to other Stacey. Alrighty, so those are the stats of the books I read. So let's touch base on the books that I actually read. So we'll just kind of go through them here. So the first book I read in the month of February was Love and Other Perennial Habits by Emmaline Warden. This is the first book in her Genus of Gentlemen series, and this is her debut book, and I got an ARC for this. I saw that one of the authors that's kind of been helping her in her author journey was Bethany Bennett, and she was asking for ARC readers, and Bethany Bennett reposted it. So I applied and I got it because I thought it'd be fun to try a new historical romance debut author. I believe it's available on KU. But I enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. This is Margaret and Oliver, and Margaret, she's like who we usually see as side characters in historical novels. She kind of ended up being forced by her family to marry this elderly earl. And when he passes away, he is so horrendous to her. He leaves her this like rundown cottage house that he had forced his mother to live in. And like nothing inheritance wise. She gets like $5, the equivalent of $5 a year or something crazy. And of course his heir was friends with Margaret and was completely flabbergasted, but there was nothing they could do because that's what his will was and what he set it up as. But when she is setting up this house, we meet Oliver, who is in line. He's the second son, but he's now the first in line to become a duke. And his father has basically called him back to town to start training as a duke because it hasn't been very long since his brother has passed. And this is his like last little reprieve. He is very into botany and he is more science minded. And so he's kind of at his little estate and working on some last minute experiments that he has going on. And he's just kind of taking the chance to do and enjoy what he loves before he's kind of has to really start stepping into the role of being a duke. And they meet and they fall in love. There's like a hand fasting or like a cute, it's just us and we're pledging vows to each other and they treat each other like they're married. And I really enjoyed this. I did get a little bit frustrated with her wanting so much to not be a part of society. And the whole, it wasn't quite a third act breakup, but there was kind of like a breakup-ish situation going on. And that was the only reason why I docked it down from a 5 stars, because it felt, I don't know, a little cliche and you could see it coming, and she just didn't really, she was pushing too hard about not wanting to rejoin society. But let's be honest, Oliver didn't really want to join society in the first place, and he was just going to do what he could to be a good duke, but still hold on to what he enjoyed. So I gave it 4 stars. I definitely like it if you're looking for a new here. Now this one did have very kind of strong feminism vibes, which a lot of the newer historicals do, and sometimes it's kind of iffy for me, but I feel like the way it was written about in this situation, with her being a widow and basically having to completely fend for herself, it made sense in this situation, so that didn't bother me as much here. But yeah, so there is that. And then the second and third books I read, I'm going to talk about them together. I listened to the audiobooks for book 2 and 3 of The Wrath of Fae by Alessa Thorn. So book 2 is Heart of the Winter Prince, and that's Freya and Bane's story, and he's the Winter Prince, and his curse is his heart is freezing, and it will kill him. And Freya is actually the cousin of the heroine in the first book, and she's kind of like an antiquities finder person, and so she is tasked to find a Norse dagger that mythology says was used to slay ice giants, and so they're hoping that using this dagger on Bane will help break his curse. But of course, it's fated mates. Freya is his favorite, his fated mate, and I just enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it to pieces. I love Alessa Thorn. And yeah, and this was one of the ones, these are the 2 that I said I had pre-ordered, because I had ordered this once I read it, but I hadn't received it yet. But I enjoyed the audiobooks. The audiobooks were great. If you check out the audiobooks, they are available on Hoopla, but it is the bind up of the series. All of Alessa Thorn's books are available in KU, but if you'd like paperback copies, she does them in bind ups. So I'm just throwing that out there. But yeah, when I finished book number 2, because it was in the bind up, I just continued and I read book number 3 in the series. And that's Wings of the Night Prince. This is Bronn and Killian. And I was very excited for Killian's book. He's like the knight, the dark prince, and his curse, because he was kind of like the playboy prince of the 3, his curse is he can't touch anybody, and when he touches people, they like die. They get like weird diseases and they end up dying. And when he ends up touching Bronn somehow, and she's his fated mate, but they both are kind of silly and don't realize this. They're just like, oh, I can touch you. And so we kind of have a sex pact here, but he is captured by, oh my gosh, who's the big bad? I want to say Morgoth, but that's not right. It's a name that is common in, Morgan is the big bad. So they're dealing with that. But Morgan captures Killian, and Bronn ends up saving him. But what's super fun is Bronn is a part of the Ironwood family, of which is the spin-off series of this. The audiobooks are currently being recorded for that series. Just saying. But yeah, I definitely want to pick up the spin-off series because it was so much fun. But I love Alessa Thorn. I gave it 5 stars as well. She's one of my favorite KU authors. I have loved every book I've read from her. I am working on my backlist of her. I had first picked her up in the first Feral Feb, so that was 2020 or 2021. And I had read everything that she had published at the time, which was like only 4 or 5 books. And then I was like, I love it. I can't wait for more. And I've immediately started following her on social media and joined her newsletter list. And then like a year and a half went by and I didn't read any of her new released books. So I am trying to get caught up on Alessa Thorn this year. So yeah, I love this. I highly recommend Alessa Thorn. She writes paranormal and fantasy romance mostly, and a lot of mythology books too. But anyway, I recommend Wrath of the Fae for sure. So yeah, I read those 2 books. And then the next 2 books I'm going to chat about, I'm not going to go too much into them because I read them for my Feral Feb dedicated vlog of new to me fantasy authors. The vlog is coming soon for that. But the first book I picked up for the vlog was Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And I gave this 3.5 stars. Our main characters here are Zele and Inan. And then we also have Amari and Zayle's brother, which I did not get down on my little cheat sheet here, but that's okay. In my struggles with this book was I was way more interested in Amari's story, who is like the princess figure, than Zayle's story. I had some issues with Zayle's character, and then the world building and stuff like that. But like I said, check out the vlog when that comes out, but I gave it 3.5 stars. And then I picked up Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. And this is Tisana and Max Antarius. I saw Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life and Jesson from Jess and Ray's Romance loved it. And then Jen picked it up and was enjoying it. So yeah, this is the first book in her The War of Lost Hearts trilogy, which I definitely need to continue on. It is available in KU. The first book's audio is available in Hoopla, and that's how I read this, was via audiobook. And I loved it. 5 stars. And like I said, I talk about it in my vlog, so check that out when it comes up. So then I kind of did a little shift and I picked up Blood Promise by Richelle Mead. This is the 4th book in the Vampire Academy series, and I'm participating in the Vampire Academy read along. And I give this one 3.5 stars. So this one, I don't quite remember exactly what happens in this one, but I know I talked about it during my weekly vlogs. Blood Promise. Oh, this is the one where Rose goes to Russia in Siberia and she's trying to hunt Dmitri down. I really enjoyed the first part of this book and I really enjoyed the last part of this book, but the middle part of the book, I really struggled. It felt slow. It felt too long. One thing I didn't realize, because the first couple of these books were like normal 350-ish page length. Books 4, 5, and 6 get exponentially bigger. This one was like 400 something pages. Book 5 was like 500 pages. And book 6 was like almost 600 or 700 pages or something ridiculous. And I was just like, why do we have to read all 3 of these in a month? Those are 3 really long books. But yeah, so I gave this one 3.5 stars. I'm trying not to take the other books into consideration for this specific book, but I really kind of struggled. Like I said, I enjoyed the first part, enjoyed meeting Sydney and kind of seeing Rose meet Dimitri's family and her trying to track Dmitri down. And I loved when it felt like she was there a little too long. In the story wise, she kind of got the kick in the butt by Dimitri's grandmother. But it was interesting that we got to meet another bonded spirit-using pair. And then the whole situation with Dimitri's, the Strigoi, kidnapping her, and that, I felt like that went on way too long. And I didn't really like the situation that it was putting us in, our characters in. And I felt like Rose completely lost all sense of who she was. And I don't know, it just went on way too long. And then when she plus it really kind of I don't know, this is another series where I'm enjoying the more side characters. Like, I enjoy Lissa's storyline and Lissa and Christian so much more than the Rose and Dmitri dynamic. And I just was so frustrated with what Lissa was going through. And it was cool that we were still able to kind of touch base and see what was happening with Lissa. But it just really bothered me that when Rose was put in that situation, it's like she completely forgot about Lissa and her situation and how things were kind of getting funky over there. And that really just, it really kind of bothered me. So I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. Then, this was my combo book. I read the physical copy of Sweep in Peace. This is the second book in Ilona Andrews' Innkeeper Chronicles series. And I read this and listened to the graphic audio. Amazing once again. And I give this 5 stars. I definitely could have had more Sean in this. And I definitely could have had more of their romance. But I think that this is a really good way to kind of help move us forward and give Sean the space to grow and learn about the universe and, you know, kind of get thrown in the hot seat. But we aren't there learning every tiny little thing with him. Plus, we also got to kind of see Dina step up and Gertrude Hunt really kind of step up in what's going on in the universe and get some power influx going and get some more guests, which was super fun. But yeah, I like I said, 5 stars. I loved it. I think I liked the first book a little bit more than this one if I were to rank them, but I still really, really enjoyed this. I love Ilona Andrews. And like I said, I'm really hoping book 3 we get more of the romance kind of coming back in. But in this one, Dina is basically hosting a peace summit between the space vampires, the hope-crushing horde, and the merchants of Bahachar. And it was just so much fun. So many different characters. She gets a chef in this. Oh my god. I love him. He is so much fun. I'm trying to see, there's artwork in the physical copies. I'm trying to see if we have artwork of him. And the graphic audio was amazing. I loved, I think his name is Otto. Oro. And he's just such a fun character, and he's so over the top dramatic, but it's even better in the graphic audio because you just kind of hear him just going off in the background in the kitchen, and it's great. I guess there's not a picture of him in here, but I know I've seen a picture of him like on their website. But yeah, there's fun black and white artworks in here. But yeah, it was super interesting. I was a little kind of peeved at the arbiter that we had to deal with. And I was a little frustrated that Dina didn't at least get a little bit of a bump in her star rating up to 3 from 2.5. But I guess that's better that she stayed the same instead of, because I know she broke some innkeeper rules here because of the situation that was happening. But I loved it. 5 stars. If you haven't read Ilona Andrews, please pick her up. Okay, then I went back to Vampire Academy and I picked up Spirit Bound, which is book 5. So this is Lissa and Rose are pretty much reunited, and they are back at school, and this is kind of them graduating and from high school, I guess. And we get a lot of more kind of dealing with the spirit and them going to I'm trying to think I can't remember what the big thing is, because I'm this one and the last book are kind of blending to me here. So she comes back and she saves Lissa from the 2 evil people. And then I think this is them at the school. But I can't remember what the big bad was in this one that they were dealing with, or what they were dealing with it here specifically. But yeah, I also gave this one 3.5 stars. And I'm just completely blanking on it here. And I just... Once again, there were parts of it that I felt just like really dragged, and it just really just didn't feel like things were moving at a good pace. And once again, I had issues with Rose. I don't know. There's something where she just doesn't quite do it for me. But let me see... Pull it up here. Spirit Bound. Okay, yeah. So this is when she kind of starts talking about what's going on, and her and Lissa start looking into the fact that spirit could potentially bring someone back from being a streakoy. And once again, I thought there were weird choices being made. And to do this, they're breaking people out of prison and they're doing some not so good things. I don't know. Alyssa made some weird choices, but Rose in particular made some weird choices that I didn't like. And then I wasn't quite sure what was kind of going on. But this ended up on a cliffhanger. And even though I gave it 3.5 stars, I was really like invested in it. And even though it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, I immediately started book 6 because I was like, I gotta know what happens right away. But yeah, so 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. It was fine. I just struggle because Rose is written very much like she is more mature than her age. And it's okay that she has moments where she is more her age, but I feel like the moments where she is her age, it contradicts so much with her older maturity levels. And so I get kind of frustrated with that. And that's more prevalent in these last couple books in the series for sure. And then I read A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I picked this up for the SJM along. This is the second to last book in the read along, which is crazy. But I mean 5 stars. I mean, are we surprised this was 5 stars? I connected so much to Nesta, and I feel like I connected to her a little bit differently in ways that I've seen other people connect to her. This book had me crying multiple times. I think the first time I like teared up was a couple pages in, but the first time I had like actual tears was page 17, I think, because I was like made a note and I was just like, oh my gosh. But Nesta and Cassian are everything. I love them to pieces. I was kind of pissed off at Reese in this book. And a little bit at Feyre and a little bit at Elaine. And I just, as someone who's dealt with their own mental health issues and less than ideal familial relationships, specifically with my father, and also having lost my mom, this really touched me, and I loved that Nesta was able to find her family, because it just really kind of broke my heart when she's talking about how Feyre and Elaine have created this found family, but the one person that isn't included is their actual sister, their actual family. And she just kind of felt ostracized and an outsider. And then, of course, because she was feeling that way, she lashed out and made it worse. And I didn't lash out in that way. I lashed out in different ways myself, but I don't know. I feel like I can't say anything outside of it. It was just amazing, and it touched me on so many levels, and it made me smile, and it made me swoon because Cassian can get it. And it just made me absolutely happy. And I'm dying, so I will be right back. Okay, I had to move a little bit so I can plug you in while we finish up. But, so yeah, I finished that and I loved it to pieces. And I'm sitting on a book here. All right. Then I wanted to finish the second bingo board of Winter's Kiss because I just had a couple prompts left. So I ended up picking up a couple novellas. So the first one I picked up was His Sunshine by Megan Wade. This is the first book in her Candles and Curves series. And this one I thought was interesting. It was like a 19-year age gap, which I didn't realize. But this was cute. This is set in the same town as a lot of her other small town romance series are set in, but actually, the book of all the books I've read from Megan Wade, I actually haven't read any in this town, so that was interesting to see her take on it. But I give this 3.5 stars. I thought it was super cute. Megan Wade is very much about the instant love and, you know, when you meet someone who is your like fated person, you have a knowing. And so they're all very quick, but it was like a great palate cleanser and a great just like emotional reset for me after reading Silver Flames. And I enjoyed this one. I gave it 3.5 stars, like I said, but I rounded it up to 4 on Goodreads. And this one is Ava and Duke. And Ava, this premise will probably take me longer to explain than it actually took to read the book. But she has a favorite candle. I'm sure we all have a favorite scent. But it is discontinued at Bath & Body Works. And so she has been buying all of these random candles to try to find a similar scent or a new scent that can be her go-to. And she ends up buying a candle made in this small town. And it is said to smell like the small town. And when she finds out the small town is only a few hours away from where she is, and she loves the candle, she decides to go visit on like a little extended weekend kind of vacation thing. And while she's there, she ends up getting a tarot reading from the person who actually makes these candles or is associated with the person who makes the candles. And they talk about how she'll meet her twin flame, which there's things about twin flames where I'm like, yeah, it's not all it's cracked up to be if you look at like the actual what a twin flame is. And twin flames aren't necessarily romantic. Just throwing that out there. At least for my interpretation of the situation. But anyway, and then she ends up accidentally backing up into a gentleman's truck. And of course he like barely has a little ding and she like damages her car. And so she's trying to leave a note with their information and she somehow breaks off his windshield wiper, like the metal part. So I don't know. She's very, very klutzy, but like klutzy in a bad way. Cause there's a point in the book where she like opens a door into her face and like breaks her nose. Like it's not just like cute little klutzy stuff. It's like this girl can damage herself. Klutzy. But it ends up being this grumpy mechanic, and he's like, she's 29 and he's like 48, so big age gap there, which I wasn't expecting. And they end up going on a date and just having that knowing, and yeah, so it's their thing. Like I said, 3.5 stars, but I rounded it up to 4. I mean, it was a good, quick, cute, I mean, it is what it is. And then I needed something for holiday decor, so I ended up picking up Tricks in the Night by Megan Wade, which is the 8th book in the multi-author Halloween Nights series. Now, I also gave this one 3.5 stars, but this one I rounded down to 3 because I thought the other one was a little bit better. This one is Lila and Devlin, and this is new adult. They're both in college, and she always does Halloween with her roommate / best friend, and her brother really wants her to go to this special Halloween party senior year. It's his final year as well because he had slowed down his classes of how many he was taking to help take care of their mom when she was sick. But her mom's fine. Their mom is fine now, so that's just a weird situation. To still have the brother there, but be older, I guess. But anyway, when she arrives, it is shortly after her brother's friend Devlin. So he is still in this. It's not a Halloween party. It's more of like a haunted house type situation. Whoa, my little light's falling here. Except it really didn't make sense to me because there's like a guy checking people in on a list outside, and then you walk in this like creepy house, and then you walk up and there's another door and another bodyguard, and then he like pushes them in, And it's a haunted house type setup, but it's literally one room, and it's just packed to the brim with people dressed as zombies. And they basically like drag you in, and they're just like pulling you through the mob to the exit. Like the weirdest freaking haunted house ever, because it's literally just this one room. But she is absolutely terrified of zombies and has a breakdown when she like gets shoved into this room and people start grabbing her. Which, I mean, I've been to haunted houses. I'm not a big horror person, but I have seen when other people get completely freaked out and they know, back off, this person is having a mental breakdown. Like, she was on the floor crying and sobbing and screaming for help. Like, you don't keep by scaring them. But he ends up rescuing her, and then they find out it's like a setup by her brother, and she gets really weird about things and very insecure and hating on her brother because she thought it was all a trick and he was paid by her brother to go out with her. Or I don't, it was weirdness. So it had the good, like, Megan Wade humor, but the situation itself and the fact that they were young and then the, like, over-the-top insecurities by her just kind of drug it down for me. So I rounded it down to 3 stars, but it was a cute holiday novella if you want to throw it on your TBR for next Halloween. And then I ended up picking up the audiobook for My Fake Rake by Eva Leigh, and this is the first book in her Union of the Raked series. And I gave this one 3.5 stars as well. I just have been in a 3.5 star like rating of slump, I guess, or phase. I don't know. And I loved Sebastian. I loved Sebastian, our hero. Let's be honest, I felt like Grace didn't deserve him. He was too good for her. And the things that she did to him and the things that she said to him really bothered me. And then the fact that, okay, so this is a fake dating situation. Grace is the daughter of, I think, an earl. So she is a part of society. She had a horrendous first season and has then, since then, kind of basically become a blue stocking. She is a scientist and she studies, like, reptiles. And she has a fellow peer person who is also titled a male, and she kind of has a huge crush on him. And when her father and mother kind of mention after a health scare with her father that, you know, she needs to kind of really think about her life, because if she really doesn't want to get married, they can try to do what they can to help put her in a good position. But she also needs to be aware about the fact that if she is choosing not to get married, she's then going to have to rely on other family members, like her brother and stuff, to have to always want to be there to kind of help take care of her and give her a house and funds to live her life, kind of a situation. And so she decides, okay, maybe I will get married. And so she wants to, because she has a crush on this other peer scientist, but she needs him to see her as not just like a peer in the scientific realm. So her good friend Sebastian, who's also a scientist, he is not a part of society. However, he went to the same school as a duke, and they were like good friends. So he's like society adjacent, I guess. I didn't quite understand his lineage and how he got to the same schooling and all of that. But anyway, basically they end up having a fake dating agreement, and he's going to turn from his little bookish nerdy self into a rake. And when he becomes like the talk of the ton and people will see that he's interested in her, then they will hopefully catch this other guy's attention. because men want what they can't have, so to speak. Kind of similar to The Duke and I by Julia Quinn, where getting attention from a Duke or a Rake will get other people to be like, oh, well, what does he see in her, kind of a thing. Like I said, I loved Sebastian. He just, I mean, it was kind of ish mutual pining. I mean, very early on, we see that Grace really has feelings and is very, or at least lustful feelings towards Sebastian. And it takes her way too long to kind of realize what's going on in her own situation. And she's just so set on this other guy. And I was struggling with her, but I was like, okay, fine. But my biggest thing was when Sebastian proposes to her the first time. And is it an ideal proposal? No. But what is her response? In her head, she's going, okay, I see now. Sebastian is the one I want a proposal from. But it's not how I wanted a proposal. He didn't tell me he loved me. He didn't tell me his feelings or anything like that. But instead of asking him, like most situations that I've read like this, they say, why do you want to marry me? And then they can have whatever tiff over that. But they at least ask. What is her response? Oh, this other dude proposed to me earlier today. And then she talks about how Sebastian rejected her. Excuse me, ma'am. No, you rejected him. He proposed to you. So she really aggravated me, but I loved Sebastian. So I went in the middle with the 3.5, because if I were to rate it just on her story, it would be like a 2.5. But if I rated it on his story, it'd be like a 4. So I went with 3.5, maybe 4.5, because I really love Sebastian. And then the final book I read was a Christmas novella, Christmas in Quincy by Devney Perry. I needed a recommendation from Shelby to finish out the Winter's Kiss bingo board, and I saw that she had recommended one of the books in this series, and I was like, perfect, a novella. This also worked for one of my other prompts for one of my other reading challenges, to give an author a second chance, because I had read one previous book by Devney Perry that I did not enjoy. And yeah, so I like this. I gave this 4.5 stars. This is the prequel novella to her Eden's series. And it's kind of interesting because it seems like this takes place on where the rest of the series is going to take place. However, the Edens, I mean, they're side characters, but they're more like peripheral characters, because this focuses on Cleo and Austin, who are in the town of Quincy for Christmas. And Austin works for her father, like a bodyguard type person, and she's trying to escape the family drama around Christmas and have a quiet Christmas by herself. And he tracks her down to drag her back to California as per her father's wishes. And then they end up staying over Christmas together and admitting their feelings. So another kind of mutual pining situation. Like I said, I gave it 4.5 stars. My biggest issue with this was there was so much put into establishing their previous relationship and getting to the point where they finally were honest with each other about their true feelings. And then that was like 70-80% of the book. And then the rest, until we hit that point. And then the rest was like, okay, we're going to get through them being happy and them getting it on, and then our epilogue, which was 2 years later, but the epilogue was super cute. But I wish that point where things kind of switched was a little bit earlier. And so, because I wanted to see more of them being happy and being able to be open with each other with their feelings and in a relationship for real. So I wanted to see more of that, of them, because you don't see them quite reach the HEA. And I know it's a novella, so a lot of the times that is the HEA, but I wanted to see a little bit more before we got to that epilogue. But like I said, I enjoyed it. I'm definitely intrigued to read the series, But I don't think Cleo or Austin have anything to do with the rest of the series outside of they stayed in the inn, and the inn is owned or run by some of the Eden family members. So we just kind of meet them vaguely. But I'm definitely intrigued enough. I might pick up the rest of this series here. Who knows when, but I'm definitely intrigued. But yeah, there's that. That is the 13 books I read in February. And I really kind of talked a lot about them, didn't I? Let me know down below what your favorite book in February was. Or if any of these sounded super good to you. And if you'd like to just leave me an emoji instead, leave me a holiday related emoji, since I ended with Christmas and Halloween novellas in February. I mean, it was fine. It didn't bother me any. But otherwise, like, subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you all soon with another video.